are going? What is going on with everybody? It is your boy Eric, aka Young God, coming to you live in the Orange Dungeon, giving it to you real raw rugged. And I got somebody on the other line. I'll let him introduce himself. Who do we have here today?
My name is Tochi, straight up. My channel is TochiRTA. I'm basically a YouTuber, filmmaker. I'm really a screenwriter. And that's kind of how I would say I'm trying to get into the game. I've gone some films that I've done. You could go on my Vimeo, but that's really me. I'm a film dude at my heart. And I'm also a massive hip-hop fan. So those two things correlate. You know, if you've seen some of my work, I often have hip-hop soundtracks and things like that. I've made a couple of things. And mostly martial arts films. That's what I love. I love that kung fu shit. I love that karate stuff. You know, samurai ninjas. That's all me. So that's how I came in. And then I also was doing a little hip-hop stuff. Like, my channel goes, like, I think the earliest video was like from 2008. I was interviewing some like Canadian hip-hop legends and things like that. So I've always done hip-hop-ish stuff. And then now I've been doing videos that are, I guess, causing a bit of a ruckus on the internet. So we're going to talk about that.
Hey, man, I can't wait. I identify you definitely as a domestic terrorist. You definitely have... You're definitely on the FBI most wanted list. People hate you, but there's also people that hated you and now actually love you. I've been seeing a lot of that. I've been seeing, like, I seen this guy's video for the first time. I thought he was terrible. Then I kept watching him, and now I get it. I've been seeing a lot of that. So this interview, I want to talk about the music. I want to talk about the kung fu. I want to talk about everything. But before we get into any of that, how you doing today, man?
Hey, man, I'm good. You know, I can't complain. Weather's nice, you know. May's around the corner. I'm in Toronto, Canada, so we're just starting to kind of see summer weather. So, yeah, it's nice, man.
Hey, not as nice, not nice at all out in Florida. It is raining, it is thundering, it is lightning. Like I told him.
You're in Jacksonville, right?
Jacksonville, Florida. Yeah,
let me just say, you know, quick shout out to my man Antoine. You know, I think he's from Jacksonville. This dude I know. But I don't know a ton about Jacksonville, to be honest with you. But you know, we can chat about that.
You ever been to Florida?
No, never been to Florida. It's definitely on my list. I've been to, so as a Canadian, I'm, you know, born and raised, I would say, sort of. But I'm born in Canada, and I have a lot of family in the United States, right? Like cousins and uncles and all that kind of stuff. So, and I used to live in Brooklyn, so. So I've been to the U.S. a lot. I spent quite a bit of time, you know, whether it be New York or Texas, parts of Texas, Virginia, VA, L.A., been to L.A. So I've been kind of around. Obviously, D.C., I got friends in D.C., you know, a lot of places, really. Be more. Like, so I've kind of been around, but there's obviously places I just haven't been. The United States is a huge place.
Question. Being somebody that's not from Florida, that's never been to Florida, as an outsider, what is your perspective on Florida? I think the perspective on Florida is very interesting from people that's not from here.
Right. Okay. So my perspective of Florida is that y'all are crazy, right? I mean, and to a certain degree, I don't know how much of that is sort of y'all like putting into that, because that's sort of like the stereotype, quote unquote, and that's kind of, you know, like, you know, sometimes the chicken and egg thing. Is it really that y'all are crazy, or is it like, because outsiders perceive y'all as being a little crazy, so therefore, you know, to get a buzz, we do that, whatever. So that's been my perspective of Florida a bit. Just kind of like this wild places like alligators and shit, you know, random places, and just ratchet, like, you know, that's again, and that's also a hip hop thing, in terms of like hip hop, you know. But on the flip side of it, obviously you hear about, you know, Miami, beautiful, the beautiful beaches and, you know, palm trees, all that. But then, like I said, I also, like, I've heard of places like Jacksonville where, you know, shit is real, and like, so I don't know, like, from a rap perspective, what I know about Florida, what I see about Florida, obviously is from, like Trick. I think Trick Daddy's from Florida, right? Trina, Miami, right? Khaled, Rick Ross. I'm trying to think who else is from Florida that I know of. Obviously, Triple X, Tentacion was from Florida.
You got Kodak, you got Uncle Luke, people like that. So,
yeah, of course, 2 Live, right, right. Of course, Uncle Luke, right.
So that's interesting. Yeah, it's I wouldn't say it's like if somebody's perspective is that Florida's crazy, I wouldn't say that anybody plays into it. I would say if you think they're crazy, then they're probably crazy. It's not an act with them. They're probably some crazy people, but not as crazy as people think. You know, you see the headlines, the Florida man and all that or whatever, but you come to Florida, you'll get some enjoyment out of it. Jacksonville, the largest city in the world, or in America, excuse me, in the sense of land wise, not population, but land wise, biggest city in the world. Interesting place, very interesting place. But honestly, who cares about Florida right now? It's all about you, my boy. I need to figure out why you are the way you are. I'm a big sociology guy, studying of people, why people are the way they are, looking at your videos, just seeing things. I'm like, this might be the most electric nigga on YouTube in the past 5 years. Definitely hip-hop YouTube. Hip-hop YouTube absolutely stinks. Hip-hop journalism stinks. Hip-hop media. Everything about hip-hop media, if it's YouTube, journal, whatever, 9 times out of 10, probably is going to be very bad. So, to see you being such a diversive, polarizing figure, I think is like a breath of fresh air. Because, like, whether you agree with him or disagree with him, this guy is bringing something that we're not seeing anymore. And it was this guy on YouTube. He was my biggest inspiration. Dude named Nikbag. He was on YouTube.
Nikbag. I remember Nikbag. Come on, man. Where the hell's Nikbag?
Hey, man, I've been trying to... let me pull the curtains back. I've been trying to interview Nikbag for the past, 5 years, bro. I have been on my... I've been on his tail. Bro, Nikbag was the GOAT, bro. Like, literally, when he stopped, that's kind of why I started doing YouTube a little bit, because it was like, who's going to fill this void? Like, I need somebody to do it. So...
Yo, he was so raw. And it's funny you say that, because, again, that's kind of... low key one of my inspirations, you know what I mean? Like, I remember Nikbag when, he was like, the thing came out, it was like J. Cole, and it was ass, and just like the way he talked was hilarious to me, and I was like, but he kept it 100, and like, this is the thing I always used to, like, I try to find, I was like, oh, but where'd he go, and all this stuff. So but honestly, man, I just got tired, man. As Paul Mooney said, it's late in the day. It's late in the day, man. This hip hop journalism is terrible, and it's gotten so bad. I remember having a conversation with Funk Flex about this when I was in Queens, and
well, you just randomly ran into Funk Flex, or?
So I get around, man. I get around. So
yeah, I didn't know you had a Funk Flex connect. That was interesting. All right, explain that.
But this is one of the great things, obviously, about living in New York, because when you're in New York, there's a lot of events and things like that where people are at. Like, you can just kind of meet people and bump into them. And I remember there was like a hip hop thing. It was like hip hop journalism day or something like that. It was an event going on in Queens, and Funk was there. So I was like, oh shit! Like, I'm definitely gonna go to this. And I remember, I think who else was there? I think Chuck Chillout was there. He was like DJing. It was cool. Anyways. So they had a panel on hip-hop journalism, and I'm there in the audience, and Funk Flex was talking about hip-hop journalism, and I can't remember exactly how it happened, but it was hilarious, because you know me, I'm like I said, I say what I say, and I say it, bluntly. And I remember I went up to the panel, and I was like asking, because it was Funk Flex and a few other people, and I was like, yo, what's up with hip-hop journalism, really? Like, you know what I mean? Like, like, what's really going on? Why is it degraded to the point that it is, where we're even letting someone like Vlad, because Vlad has taken over in a lot of ways in hip hop. And I remember Funk just like, he wasn't losing it, but he was like, "What do you mean? Like, what do you mean about Vlad?" And so it was funny, because it was me and Funk Flex literally talking like for like 15 minutes while the audience was just was just watching us like back and forth. And I was trying to tell him that, like, Vlad is taking over because Vlad is the only place where people keep it real for the most part. I mean, there's obviously, like, now it's kind of, Vlad, in my opinion, is falling off as well too. And I was never really it's hard to say. Like, I'm a fan of Vlad in a way, because I like how he was not afraid to ask the tough questions. But I can also see, to a certain extent, that, like, he's definitely he's definitely fallen off in terms of interview selection, like some of the guests he's getting on, and also just to like his, you can kind of see the shtick now. Let's like say something troll-like to get it's the quality has gone down a bit for me personally. But the point is, what I did like about Vlad is that he had a balance. He had like the up and coming dude who's doing dumb shit on YouTube, who's trying to cloud chase and get his numbers up. Some aspiring rapper who shot somebody. That shit I don't watch. I don't give a damn about that stuff. But then he would also have like interviews with, let's say Said G from Ultramagnetic. And I'm like, yo, where the hell is Said G at? I've been wanting to see Said G for a minute because I don't know where he's at. You know what I'm saying? Or Large Professor or who knows, Jerry the Damager or even like a Cam or something from LA. Like these are guys who are legends that nobody talks about and no one like Hot 97 is not interviewing them, right? The Breakfast Club is not interviewing them. Vlad is interviewing them. And this is where I was like, trying to tell Funk Flex, I was like, yeah, you can call Vlad a vulture all you want, and he's definitely a vulture, but at the same time, he's actually giving light to like hip hop as a whole, whereas Hot 97 and some of these other stations that are supposed to be about this hip hop shit don't cover this stuff at all. And that shit is disappointing. And it's sad that Vlad has to be the platform to do it. So, anyways, we went back and forth, and and Flex was like, "Well, it's not, I don't like the fact that he says stuff to instigate or whatever." And I'm like, "Well, that stuff we can agree about that. Like the instigation stuff is, but at the same time, I don't even care about that. What I want to know as a fan is I want to know an OG's real thoughts on the game." Right? Not fake thoughts, because a lot of these OGs, I when they talk, I feel like they're lying. You know what I'm saying? Like when, for example, Vlad asked, I think it was Fat Joe about the gay mafia or something like that. Like that's Fat Joe's real thoughts. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And it needed to be said. Real talk. It needed to be said, and I respect the fact that Fat Joe said that. I can't think of another platform that's big where Fat Joe would have been asked that question, and that's what I'm saying. It's sad that we don't have these frank conversations in hip hop anymore. So anyway, the point is the journalism has definitely gone down, and I don't think it was always like that. And that's, I think, part of why I'm trying to spark that, like, come on, let's get back to like real journalism, because I remember the days of The Source. You know what I mean? Like I had The Source magazines and stuff like that, right? And I just remember, like, the discourse in general, people were more honest. If someone dropped something that was whack, they said it was whack. Just is what it is, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't make the person horrible human being. People drop whack projects. It just is what it is, for whatever reason. But now it's like, well, you can't say that because you might be offending the person's feelings and all this, like, goofy shit. And I'm like, nah, man, that lowers the competition. It lowers the quality.
See,
anyway.
I'm a younger guy. So I didn't grow up within the 90s, you know what I'm saying? I was born in the late 90s, born in 1998, so pretty young person, but I am very interested. Like, my favorite subject in school is history, so I like history from ancient history, Egyptian history, ancient China, black history, all types of history. So, of course, since I like hip-hop, I love hip-hop history. I love sports, so I love basketball history. I love football history. Also, shout out to the Heat. That's my team. We're playing tonight.
Of course.
Let's hope the Heat wins tonight. But, I love history, so I really want to do my due diligence and go back and look at everything. You can't say that for everybody. It's a lot of people that are doing hip-hop that are very oblivious to anything that's going on in history. So it's young people that's getting into like journalism. It's like the big YouTubers that's talking about hip-hop. A lot of them are either white or young. Hip-hop is a young man's sport, so it's like, hey, get the old man out of here. You want to hear his old head opinion? I want to hear what the old niggas got to say. The old niggas they know more than me. Y'all niggas was in it before I was. Y'all niggas been listening to it way. So why wouldn't I want? Y'all only gotta agree with everything they gotta say. But why wouldn't I want to hear somebody who has much more experience in something that I love and just see what they gotta say about it? Even if I don't agree with it, it's like, okay, I'm gonna find probably something interesting, because it's like, okay, you're looking at it from a perspective that I probably just would have never understood it from. But a lot of these YouTubers, like I said, white and or young, they don't care about the history. Black YouTubers, white YouTubers don't really matter, but I could just tell I could tell by I be seeing YouTubers that have like vinyls on their wall and stuff like that. I could tell by what a nigga got on his wall. Like, man, nigga first album started in 2008. You know what I'm saying? It's like, well, you feel me? Like, I can't take that serious. You know what I'm saying? But like, we really have to start acknowledging the history, and I kind of go back to what you're saying with Vlad and how he's interviewing all of these legends. I try to interview legends the most I can, like, because like I said, my favorite rapper of all time is Ghostface. So I'm trying to. So I love that era of music. I love 70s soul music. I just interviewed Kool in the Gang recently. Kool from Kool in the Gang recently.
Damn, okay.
Because I really am like a big lover of music, but I think that's where it starts, because we want to ignore the history, and I don't understand why, because the history is why we got here, and a lot of those people from that history are so influential. So I think we just need a better job at, acknowledging that past, because those people from that past are very important in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think it's deliberate, honestly, because at the end of the day, it's easier to sell whack music if people don't have historical knowledge on any level, right?
Yeah.
And that's an industry thing. I think, unfortunately, there's a lot of people in the industry who know their shit, who are definitely, were former b-boys and all that kind of stuff. I mean, obviously, there's some who weren't, or weren't even interested in hip hop and they just got in. But the point is that people in the industry, like, they know their shit. Like, you'd be surprised, you talk to them, but they are trying to rewrite history for their own personal legacies and gains and things like that. And also to them, it's just easier, man. It's like, in general, I mean, now we're getting like sort of, I guess, like an overview, but obviously I would argue that American culture, but even culture as a whole, we're obsessed with youth, right? So, it's all about the new, and there's nothing really wrong with that. It's only wrong when obviously you're discounting the opinions and views of everyone who's not youth, right? Then that's an issue. But I love the fact that hip hop is new and fresh, and I think that's also sometimes the things that the OGs don't understand. Like, hip hop is supposed to evolve. Yeah. That's the whole point. Like, if a lot of some of these guys on YouTube, whether it be listeners and things like that, they might look and be like, oh, like, for example, let's say they look at an artist like a Pop Smoke, and they're like, oh, Pop Smoke sucks because he doesn't sound like Nas. But it's like, Nas rap is not supposed to necessarily sound like Nas in 2022, right? Like, the reality of the matter is that when Nas came into the game, hip hop was already like 20 years old, and it sounded completely different. Nas came with a completely new sound, right? Jay came with a completely new sound, right? So the point is that hip hop is kind of like that train that goes through all these like really fascinating, unique places, and it's always a new place, and that's part of what makes it cool. If it was the same sound all the time, it would get lame, right? And I think sometimes with OGs, they don't necessarily, they don't understand that shit. Then, of course, you get the flip side where there are OGs who 100% understand that stuff, and they still lie, and they still don't care. Because I think to them, honestly, and it's not just a hip-hop thing. I've read this about even some rock music executives and things. I used to read Bob Lefsetz. I don't know if you've heard of Bob Lefsetz. No. I don't know if he still writes, but he used to have these like music industry newsletters that he would send out. He was like kind of like a really vocal critic at the time, really big in the rock community. I used to kind of like spy on shit. But the point is that he was basically saying that to a lot of the executives, like, the music industry is very old, right? Like, the people that have power in the music industry are very old people, and to them, what's sad is that obviously they've made a lot of money. They still want to make a lot of money. But to them, they look at it like, look, listen, man, like, I'll put on the flavor of the month listener because I don't give a shit. I already have my Sgt. Pepper, and my Illmatic and my Public Enemy at home, like, that I can listen to when I want to hear real music, right? But it's almost like they don't think the young generation deserves to hear their own Sgt. Pepper or their own Illmatic. They're not trying to find the artist that's going to deliver that to the youth because they don't care, right? To them, it's like, I already have my Illmatic. I'm good, and I'm making money. I just want to make more money. You know what I'm saying? And so I think I honestly blame the older folk, really, in the grand scheme of things, because they're the ones that run the shit. It's not, despite what the youth might think. I think hip hop is very much run by the elders and by the elder people, and that's why, you know, you got to run the Nas or the Hove or the Dre or whatever for a cosign. You know what I'm saying? And you look at the people who are behind the scenes; these are old people, but they're old people that honestly are just like, they're in the game and they're just trying to keep, you know, the lights on their mansions on. So they're just gonna go with the flavor of the month and what's easy, and they don't care necessarily if that person is deep. Man, to them it's like whatever. Like, I'm good.
Man, I just want to see hip hop in a better place. Hip hop in general, hip hop media, because I just think that I don't think niggas care about anything in general. I've used this analogy. I use this analogy for black people. You could use it for hip hop as well. But if you really love something, you're gonna like pay attention to it all the time. So if you love basketball, you're gonna pay attention to basketball within the season. You're gonna pay attention to basketball in the off season. You're gonna know the history. You're gonna know the trades that's going on. Even if it's not on ESPN all the time, you're gonna know, oh, Jason Tatum just broke his leg. And you'll know everything because you're just in tune. Like I said the same thing with black people. If people really care about black people, they wouldn't only talk about it when it's a hashtag or when it's on CNN or whatever. You would know what's going on. You would know. You would try to be figuring out solutions. Like, it would be on your mind. It wouldn't be on your mind when you only see it on your Instagram timeline. You're like, oh, I gotta go post something too. Like, nigga, you don't care. Like, nigga, you just on some like, it's almost like I feel like I have to do this. Like, you know, everybody else doing it, so I have to do it. Niggas don't care. Same thing with hip hop, bro. Niggas don't really care about hip hop like that, and that's why, you know, hip hop can kind of be what it is or whatever. But hey, man, that's why when I was on Clubhouse, I got on Clubhouse when it first started. And it was the best app of all time. It was some of the most interesting conversations you would hear. Because now everybody's like, hey, I'm not gonna lie, too many niggas on Clubhouse. I don't want to be around that many niggas. I'm around that many niggas in my real life. I don't want to be around that many niggas. I don't want to hear Whack 100 talking about having 30 different gay sex tapes. I don't care about it.
Yeah,
like, you know, when it first happened though, one of my favorite rooms was like how many years ago did Reasonable Doubt come out? I don't really remember. 97. So let's say, hypothetically, let's say it was his 25th year anniversary that year. So they did a room, and almost everybody involved with Reasonable Doubt except Jay was in that room. So from Just Blaze to producers to, it was Blueprint. It was one of those Jay-Z albums, and they were just talking about it, and it was so interesting because they got Dame on there. They were just talking about all of these stories, and it was so interesting. And one journalist was in there, and he was, I forget which magazine he wrote for at the time, I forget his name as well, but he was saying that he spent a week with Jay-Z before Reasonable Doubt came out, and he played Reasonable Doubt for him. He was with him for the whole week. He went to go out eat with him. He just really like spent time with Jay-Z. And I was like, that's so, and he said like he wrote a story about it. I was like, that's so interesting. You don't hear that anymore. You don't hear journalists spending a week with Drake before his next album drops, and he has all these interesting stories. He might be lucky to spend an hour with Drake or something, do an interview, but a whole week, I was like, that's so interesting. And I feel like that's just simple stuff like that is the stuff that we're missing in hip hop today.
Yeah, man. It's unfortunate. I think that in a lot of ways, the younger generation has gotten the short end of the stick, big time. You know, and again, that's why sometimes as much as I kind of like, I'm like, yo, you know, so what I'm trying to say is that I hope for some of my younger listeners, when I go in on your favorite rapper or whatever, young rapper, I'm not doing it because I'm jealous or as an old head or I want old rappers to. It's not like that. I'm more like, if anything, I want the new young rappers to knock out my legends. On real talk, I don't think it's good, the fact that Nas and Jay are still the best rappers we've ever heard. I think that's crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like, for a dude who grew up listening to Nas and Jay and watching them come up, we should have been had the next level. You know what I mean? Like, when Kane and Slick Rick and them came out, they were the next level. They were amazing. And then Nas, Jay, Big came and Prodigy and took it to another place. So we should have had somebody artistically. And I'm not talking about pop and sales and goofy shit like that. I'm talking about, like, artistically, musically. Someone should have been like, okay, all right, Nas, Jay, and take them to the next, and take that style or whatever it was to the next level, but nobody's doing that. And the reason for that is, like I said, I think it's just a lot of old cats. Hip-hop has become commercial, and honestly, it's business. You know what I'm saying?
I think
what I was going to say is that there's a lot of stuff that I think the younger generation has to fight that is really disadvantageous to them. Like, I think it's crazy that sampling has become so expensive. Mm-hmm. It's unreal. Like, you know, the fact that you can't even really sample it. That's pretty much like the death of hip hop when you think about it. You know, Nas and them, when they came out, they sampled Michael Jackson and, you know, who knows what, right? The Gap Band and shit like that. And they were, I mean, again, they made it hip hop and they made it their own thing and they made it dope, but they're borrowing from amazing music to make even more amazing music. The new dude coming out, what are they gonna do? Like, they can't sample. The shit's expensive. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, part of one of the reasons why I loved, you know, I'm a huge Rocky fan. I always talk about Rockies. You look at Live Love ASAP, that shit's samples everywhere. Mm. You know, and then it looks like they probably, I don't know, it took them that long to clear it, or maybe they had difficulty even clearing it to begin with. And again, it's like, that shit it's a lot harder to sample now than it was back in the day, right? So there's a lot of things that the youth have to, like, go through that I think older rappers didn't have to go through. Obviously, we've got, we're drowning in content, a lot of whack rappers, and, you know, that's another problem, because it's like you're trying to be heard, but, like, there's 1,000 other whack niggas.
Well, no, I want to get into that. I was about to say that's a perfect transition into modern hip hop. So we're talking about all of these kind of things that happened in the past, in the history of hip hop. I want to talk about modern day because that's where a lot of people opinions on you stem from, because you're talking about a lot of modern day hip hop. And I haven't said this yet, but I possibly disagree on everything you've ever said on your YouTube channel, and I am so ready to talk about all of that. Before I do, though, I have to tell you the story I told you on the phone about how I found you, just to preference how this even came about. Probably a year ago, I don't remember the video or what happened, but I'm pretty sure it came up in my recommended feed on YouTube. Watched it, I was like, this nigga is out of his mind. I don't want to watch this nigga again. Like, be gone. I don't want to watch this nigga again. You came up again, and I think I just like, this nigga just won't leave my recommendation feed. Like, this nigga like a cockroach. This nigga leave, nigga. So I was like, you know what? I'm subscribed to him. So fast forward, on this website I visit a lot, KTT2. You are posted on there almost daily at this point, and it kind of emphasized everything for me. Where I was like, I need to have a conversation with this guy, because this guy opinions are insane. And one thing before we get into modern day is they put out the classic, I think it was a TheColi thread, where niggas was going crazy in the TheColi thread talking about you. And one of the things that I have to clarify, because I have to know if it's true or not, they said that your first time hearing hip hop was in Saudi Arabia while watching 8 Mile. Is that a fact? Was it your first time getting exposed to hip hop?
No, not at all. So this is the thing about TheColi, right? So I was on TheColi. I joined TheColi, I think, like 2014 or something like that. You know, I'd wanted to join a forum where I saw, because I would see like hip hop conversation and nobody around me was really discussing hip hop. So I was like, and I would see like TheColi forums where people were talking about hip hop. But what's funny is I never really looked at the dates. I feel like, to be honest with you, hip hop conversation, the quality of hip hop conversation on TheColi there was a time when it was actually decent, but it fell off. And it had already fallen off by the time I showed up. So I was looking at, I guess, at older threads and things like that, still thinking that there was like quality discussion. So, and as soon as I joined TheColi, I just noticed right away that it was like trolling, and that was just what people were into. And I was making, you know, I was trying to create hip hop discussion about things I loved, and people were just angry all the time. And they were just like, "Yo, this dude, like, who does he think he is? How can you just say that?" And I'm like, "I'm a hip hop dude. Like, it's my opinion. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's how we got down back in the day." And then it was weird because, again, like, I was always upfront about who I was, and I mean, I don't hide. Like, you know, people know who I am. But, you know, I mentioned, obviously, I lived in the Middle East and things like that. And then it just morphed, man. Like, I mean, people would just start making up stories about, like, yo, like, this didn't even see this until, like, you know, he watched 8 Mile in Saudi. And it's just like, okay, sure, if you want to believe that. But that's, like, literally made up.
Being exposed to hip hop in Saudi Arabia watching 8 Mile is probably the most insane origin story I've ever heard.
So here's the thing, and like all things, what they're doing is they're creating fan fiction based off things that I've said about myself, right? The fact of the matter is that, yes, I grew up in Saudi Arabia, right? When I started to get into hip-hop real heavy was in Saudi Arabia. But again, people very conveniently forget, and I've said this a million times, that I was listening to hip-hop as a kid, even before that. And like when I started to really listen to hip-hop heavily was in 1997. I was in Saudi at the time, but 8 Mile came out in what, like 2001 or some shit. So there's a whole 4-year gap. I mean, like, but it's, again, it's part of the fan fiction, you know, and some of it was funny. Other parts of it were obviously like just goofy and dumb, like, you know. But again, people, it's that internet thing. It's like, you know, we don't like this guy, so we're just gonna make up shit about this person to like discredit them, and we're just gonna keep doing it because obviously the more we talk and the more we just like put it out there, the more true it becomes, even if it's complete bullshit. So the moral of the story is that obviously don't believe everything you read. But yes, I mean, I did grow up in Saudi Arabia, and when I became a huge hip hop fan was in Saudi, right? That part is true. But I was definitely very familiar with rap before 8 Mile. And in fact, I don't even what's funny to me about the whole 8 Mile thing is I didn't even see 8 Mile in Saudi.
That's hilarious.
You know what I mean? Like, I saw 8 Mile, I think, because there were no movie theaters at the time, like in Saudi. Now there are, but I think I saw 8 Mile in like 2003 or some shit like that, 2004, when I moved back to Canada. So, I mean, people are like, oh, in 2001 he was watching 8 Mile and on the camel.
Yo, nigga watching 8 Mile on a camel is crazy. That is crazy, man.
So, but I mean, I've been around, and I think that's another thing that, you know, that doesn't necessarily make me better than anybody or anything like that. It's just life circumstance. But I've been around. I've seen a lot.
That makes me feel better watching, because I was like, does this nigga start listening to rap in 2009? Like, I'm not gonna lie, they kind of had me scared, bro. So that makes me feel a little bit better, knowing that you've been listening to rap since the 90s. That makes me feel a little better.
I remember, like, my first earliest sort of, like, hip-hop memories. I mean, I was an MJ. Like, I loved that Michael Jackson. That's, like, all the sort of, that's proto-hip-hop, I guess. But my earliest rap memories was, like, MC Hammer and, you know, Fresh Prince, you know, boom, boom, shake, shake the room, and, you know, and Gin and Juice, you know, and Nothing But a G Thing. Like, that's, like, 93, 94. Jump, Crisscross. I remember these records, you know what I'm saying? So, like, I also don't do the thing where, you know, some people are like, oh, I've been listening to hip hop since I was 5, and like I was a Rakim fan at the age of 5. It's like, oh, I don't know about that. Not to say that you couldn't have been, but I mean, you're a kid, you know what I'm saying? Like, when you're a kid, you're listening as a kid. Like, I liked some of the hip hop records that my dad would play because that's how I even listened. But I was also listening to stuff my dad was playing because that's how I feel like black kids grew up. You know what I'm saying? Or just kids in general. I think maybe it's different now, but back in the day, I listened to James Brown and Al Green and, you know, Fela and Michael Jackson and all the stuff my dad was playing. Bon Jovi, right? Like, that's what my dad was playing. Right? My mom was playing, my mom was actually into, like, Mary J. Blige and Mariah Carey and Toni Braxton and some of that old, like, Jade. I don't know if you remember that, like, Don't Walk Away, that, all that shit, like, you know, so I'm listening to that stuff, right? And I'm still like a kid, right? It's not until I became a teenager, I would say, because to me, when you're a teenager is when you start to really start to put together rhymes and what does this actually mean and all that kind of stuff. And that's when I'm like, okay, I remember, because I like, you know, I was a teenager when Harlem World came out, and I bought that shit, and I was like, oh my God, like, this dude is spitting some shit, you know? So
no, I agree. I will say, though, I became, like, a really big hip-hop fan, like, early in elementary school. I will say that. Like, elementary school, because different era I grew up in. I had an iPhone in elementary school, so I was buying music. So I was already kind of
Well, that's a good point.
conceptualizing stuff. I
Right.
remember buying Man on the Moon. First album I ever bought was, it's hilarious. First album I physically ever bought was John Cena debut album, and I remember being like, "Yo, this nigga is spitting crazy" as a kid. Which he did. Hey, John Cena said, what he said something like, I'm not that Chicago rapper, but I'm common on them corners. I was like, that's fucking hard. Shout out to
Okay.
John Cena.
Sidebar.
But I remember having the that album. I remember being a big Wayne fan growing up. I remember when Drake first came out. I had all this on my first iPhone. I remember, I'm from Florida, so big Boosie fan at that time. Everybody played nothing like Boosie was like Jesus. He was like Tupac of the South. Like if you weren't in the South, you probably wouldn't understand that. But literally, Boosie was Tupac of the South, and he could do no wrong at that time. So I was like really, really big fan. I remember you could like, I had my first one was a flip phone, and you could record music and you could put it as your ringtone. I remember recording Lil Wayne's Hollywood Divorce freaking feature and putting it as my ringtone because I was just such a big Wayne fan. So although I do agree with you, but yeah, I was like, I hear people say like, yeah, I didn't get to to music really until I was like in middle school, and I was like, dang, was I just early or something? Because like elementary school, I was like obsessed with music, man. So yeah.
No, stop. No. You know, I wonder. So this is what I think is interesting to me personally, because I feel like when you're younger, and this is where I'm going to say there's an argument for there's entry level rap. This is what I'm trying to say here, because when I was listening to rap as a kid, I was listening to entry level rap. I was listening to Snoop, which is great entry level rap.
Yeah.
I mean, a classic entry, but it's a little simpler, right? I was listening to Fresh Prince and Chris, I heard Chris Hammer. That's like entry level shit. Like, it doesn't mean that it's whack, and it doesn't have a place in hip hop, but it's not like I understood Ghost and stuff. I remember listening to Wu-Tang, the 36 Chambers when it came out. Not when it came out, but like in like '97. And I was a teenager, and I was listening to 36 Chambers, and I was like, I didn't get it. I didn't get it. Like, I just didn't. Like, there were tracks. Like, I loved METHOD right away. I thought that shit was genius right away. I got it. And I loved The Mystery of Chess Boxing. I loved that right away. Those two I loved. And the rest of the CD, I was kind of like, oh, I don't get it. You know what I mean? And like, but that's what I'm saying, is that's not entry-level rap. Like, you have to know things about rap to appreciate 36 Chambers. It's like, as I got more sophisticated in my listening, then I went back to 36 Chambers. I was like, oh, yo, these dudes were on some other shit.
No, I can feel that.
I know who's on some other shit if you don't have a really solid footing in the genre to begin with. And that's what I mean.
I could say my introduction to like hardcore rap was like old Eminem freestyles. Like, that was probably my introduction to like, oh, this guy's like lyrical, and he was just like saying all this like these different rhyme schemes. And then I went through a big, like, I think 6th grade, I went through like a big like Royce the 5'9" era where I was like, Royce the 5'9" might be the greatest rapper of all time. I remember that was the most fun era of my life. But that nigga say, my saliva and spit could split thread the fiber bit, so trust me, it's homie. Come on, nah. Bro, I heard Boom and lost my mind, bro.
Yo, I remember when Boom came out. I listened to Boom when it came out. And, like, who is this dude? Like, what? Like, what? And that's what I'm saying. Like, I think, again, some of the stuff is perspective too, because, and this is why it's good to have people who are older, because they can tell you certain things. Like, the first thing right away about Boom was the damn beat. Like, it just was like, it sounded like I was like in an opera concerto hall, and I never heard nothing like that, really. You know what I'm saying? And then here comes this dude who's just, spitting crazy. I was like, what the fuck? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and that's what I'm saying. Like, rap there is something to be said about when you're listening to it. Like, how old were you? Did you get into it? Now, with that said, I got into rap, like I said, in '97. Like, hip hop had already been like 20 years old, more than 20 years old at that point. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know cats. I've had conversations with OGs. I know people who got into rap like as it was happening in the Bronx. Like, you know, so their perspective is interesting. I love hearing about their perspective. Who do they think is really dope, and you know, and why, and stuff like that. Because a lot of this stuff is perspective, and I feel that in my, which is why, like, one of the things I stress on my channel a lot is the beats, because to me that's been the consistent thing I find when I talk to OGs as well. It's like the beats, like, yo, when we heard this beat, it was like, whoa, what the fuck? Like, I remember to MC Debbie D, who's like one of the pioneering female rappers. You know, I met her in Brooklyn, you know what I'm saying? And we were just chatting, and she was like, yeah, we used to go to Flash, because Flash used to play the beats we liked. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's how we were, you know, because there were DJs coming up, and like, but Flash had the hardest beats, so they went there and partied. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, it's the beat. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, I know guys who, I remember talking to, who were there and they loved the 90s. And that's another thing that I think is really fascinating, because I do think there is something very unique and special about the 90s in general. It's not just old people, because I'm trying to say that even people who were full-blown adults when the 90s came around still look at the 90s as being the best era of rap. So that's interesting. When you talk to somebody, like, again, I used to live in Brooklyn. I remember talking to a dude who was like, I think damn near 70 or maybe close to 80. And we were having a conversation about the best era in rap, and he was like, the best era of rap to me was the 90s. And he's like, and I used to hang out with all those guys, Kool Herc and blah, blah, back in the 70s. But there was just something about the way that it all gelled together in the 90s, where he was like, yeah, that's when, to me, that like people were making the hottest shit, like the stuff that really like blew me away.
Even the R&B in the 90s, from Jodeci and them and the boy bands, and I mean,
crazy.
Even R. Kelly, you know, like, even that, like, it was like,
it's dope.
Hey,
R. Kelly's ill, man.
Hey.
R. Kelly is probably like,
he is an ill nigga for sure. He's ill for sure.
Listen, you know, it's so funny. I was never really a huge R&B guy like that. My brother was into R&B.
Yeah.
But it's really like when I look back, against a lot of this stuff is also personality. We gravitate to certain things due to who we are and what we like, right? And it's innate. Some of that stuff is just pure innate. I used to argue all the time. I remember arguing with somebody even back then in the 90s. I was a huge Aaliyah fan. Still am. I loved Aaliyah way back. I remember Aaliyah, like, you know what I'm saying? I remember seeing that Are You That Somebody video and just being like, who is this chick? Like, I love her. She's gorgeous as hell, and she's doing different shit. I like people that do different things. And what's interesting is that I was a huge Aaliyah fan, and I never really liked R&B too tough. But if I was to listen to some R&B, like, I love that, like, Toya Thong and Snake and all those joints that R. Kelly used to make. And so I had no idea. Again, maybe because I was living in Saudi, I had no idea they were even intertwined. And I was just like, when I found out later, I was like, oh my God, what are the odds that, like, my favorite R&B, like, artist in the female world was Aaliyah, and then, like my overall sort of, like, favorite R&B artist in that time was male as R. Kelly. Like, what are the odds? Is there something about their personalities and the way they approach music? You know what I mean? And all that stuff. Anyway, but yeah, there was just something about it, man. And I lived through a little bit of that. I was able to see some of it, and I think it was just the music, bro. Yeah. Like, it was. I think, yeah, like, we've always had, you know, stuff aimed at casuals and, you know, corny shit. There's always that stuff, but I have to say, I think that growing up in those days, it really was more about the music. Like, that's how I feel. Like, I just feel like we were just much more, like, maybe, you know, because there was a distance between us and the artist to a certain degree, but I think it was just like, yeah, like, this is dope. Like, let's just hear it for what it was. And people would surprise you. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I remember hearing Nirvana for the first time and being like, yo, this is some new shit. Like, people would come out with stuff, like, and that was encouraged, and there was space for it. I remember hearing Prodigy for the first time, the UK group, you know, and just being like, yo, what is this? This is dope. And I bought the tape. You know what I'm saying? Like, there was an energy that back then where it was like, you could really break through. If you were unique, it was celebrated to a certain degree. I mean, again, I'm not going to say all the way, but yeah, definitely much more than now. I think now, if you try to be unique, people really have a hard time with that.
Hey, I gotta talk about one dude who's doing his own thing. Had my favorite hip hop album of the year last year, and he took a poop on it, and I wasn't a fan of that.
Okay.
Any guess who I'm about to say?
Last year.
Hip hop album of the year last year.
Hip hop album of the year last year?
In my opinion.
Oh, I must have taken a wet diarrhea on Mach-Hommy. Is that your guy?
Mach-Hommy. First, you see the nigga name wrong. That is Mach-Hommy, man. Come on, man. It's Mach-Hommy, man. Yes, Mach-Hommy. What about Mach-Hommy, Pray for Haiti, did not connect with you?
Well, as I I haven't gone back to the album. I probably never will. And it's drumless. I'm just not into that low energy shit, man. Like, to me, hip hop is energy. It's like, again, I grew up as an MJ kid. I grew up when MJ was making classics and shit. And hip hop takes a lot from Michael Jackson and James Brown and things like that. Hip hop is, let's have fun and dance and, like, you know what I'm saying? It's that energy, and I just don't hear it with Mach-Hommy. Mac, whatever the hell his name is. I just hear it's like very plodding and slow, and then I'm like, and then it was like, even like he would say things where I'm like, I've heard this rhyme before. What the fuck? Like, I even said this in the video where he, like, he took like an old Ghostface line, but he didn't make it doper, and I was just like, I feel like I've heard this shit before, but not good, But that's just it's my opinion. But I wasn't a fan. But what's interesting is that just as I've taken a wet dump on an artist that you like, I also noticed that you took a wet dump on an artist.
I already know what you're about to say. Before you even get to that, I have to say my favorite bar off of that Mach-Hommy album that sticks in my head to this day. He said, "I'm so fly, I'll make Meghan hop out and get the Duchess." That is so crazy to me. That's a Meghan Markle. She's the Duchess of England or whatever. That was so fly to me. I was like, that's fly. I like fly shit. He talk a lot of fly talk to me.
Yeah. Okay. So here's my question. Okay. That's okay. Fair enough. Now, do you know where that bar comes from?
Where's the bar come from?
That's what I'm saying.
Give it to me. Who said that bar?
It's so real. I make her hop out, and it's so real. I make her hop out and get the Duchess. Who said that?
I don't know who said that. That's a good one.
Jadakiss.
That's a Jadakiss bar?
That's a Jadakiss bar. I owned it's on the first Locks album. I owned that tape. I had it for my birthday back in '98. I've heard that bar before.
But like you said, you said if you're gonna flip something, make it dope. Was that not a dope flip? I make Meghan hop out and get the Duchess?
I think it was okay. It's okay. You know what it is? I'm not gonna say that was a full blown whack bar. But again, I think it's not a full-blown whack bar, but it's structured like
the Kiss bar,
right? Which I've heard and, like, obviously have been listening to for years. And I remember, like, just hanging out, even whether it be in Toronto or New York, and people like, yo, it's so real, I make her up out and get the Duchess. And it's an ill line. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's like, damn, like, you live in a real life, if your chick gotta hop out and get that. So when he said it, it almost was like, what is your overall point? Like, it's so real, make Meghan hop out or whatever and get the Duchess. It's like, what's the point? Because, I mean, with Jada, it's like, it's an ill line, but it goes to, like, showing him his mindset of, like, yo, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm in the streets for real. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it just is like, it's a great way to encapsulate just how real it is for him. Whereas with Mach-Hommy, I'm like, okay, so what? Like,
see, I looked at it as like, this nigga make the Princess of England hop out, like that's crazy. Like, the nigga had the Princess of England in the car and say, man, get the Duchess for me. That's hard, man. That's hard to do, man. That's hard, man. That's hard, man. That's hard, man.
It's not the worst bar. But again, I couldn't hear that and go, oh man, I'm so blown away by this bar, because I've heard it before, and I feel like the context of it is not super impressive. It's not whack, but it's not something that is like, oh my god. And this is, it's interesting because But one of the things I remember, I don't know if you ever heard me say about how I thought Black Thought was average. I know that like was like a huge, like, it wasn't huge, but among certain people, they're like, how could you say that?
I've heard that.
But Black Thought reuses bars. Like I've heard him say stuff that I'm like, someone, like, again, I'm old enough to remember someone else say this bar, and Black Thought is just throwing it in there, and it impressed the people who've not heard the original. But it's, again, it's not like he's taking a bar that is obscure. He's taking a bar that, like, we've all heard, say, as a hip hop listener, especially at that time. But he's just throwing it out there, and, like, with no context. And I'm thinking, okay, so what? Like, I mean, that shit's boring to me. Like, you know, again, it's like, new shit, man. Let's go. Like, you know, hip hop is like, I want to hear the new shit. And if you are going to flip an old bar, I think either you spit it word for word, in a sense. Like, this is going into a slightly different route, but, like, I feel like in hip hop, people used to do, I remember the days when people used to go, word to my man this. They would actually attribute them, right? Because that was just, again, it was like, we know biting, right? You don't want to get too close to a dude's shit. And if you are going to get close, you want to give props at least, or flip it in a way that's very different.
Like Jay-Z with the Can I Kick It? You know, like referencing Tribe, you know, on Reasonable Doubt when he Can I Kick It, you know. So yeah, and I think he says like what Tribe say on the song or whatever, and he Can I Kick It? And
right,
do
exactly. You had to, because otherwise it was just like, yo, so yeah, but anyways, that's just, you know, I wasn't really feeling. Do you still play that album? Are you still like a big fan of it? Yeah, okay, you still bumping it, huh?
We'll get back to that. I cut you off. We were talking about one of your favorite rappers that, you know, I had some choice of words for. Get into that.
Yeah. So yeah, I noticed that you took a wet diarrhea dump all over my man Playboi.
Oh man.
So, Mike, what I'm curious to know is, has your opinion of Playboi improved or not really?
I think we're gonna disagree here. I think his best album is Whole Lot of Red. And I know you don't like that album. I think his best album is Whole Lot of Red. So I agree with you here. I've never been a fan of bruh. But you know the first song I heard where I was like, oh, he might be onto something. One of your favorite songs. Woke up with niggas talking about me. I was like, because this is my problem with him. I don't think you can be a legend in the game with no quotables, no nothing. You ain't saying nothing. I listen to niggas that say stuff. Even Future. I'm biggest Future fan all the time. Future be saying stuff in his songs, even if it's not the most double entendre or complex metaphor. Future got so many quotables that I could rattle off the top of my head. Carti don't really got that. So listening to his debut album, it's like he ain't really saying nothing. But it's a lot of he got a couple quotables on that song right there. And then you go to Dot Lit, one of my favorite songs, one of your favorite songs. I love R.I.P. R.I.P. It feel like a punk rock rap song, just how the beat is so aggressive. That is a crazy song. It's a couple other songs that's cool on there, but not a fan. But Whole Lot of Red, there's way more songs where he has quotables. Like Stop Breathing is insane to me. Like that is a really good song. Like he got so many quotables and bars that stick out of my head just on that song alone. I take my shirt off and the whole start breathing. Which, by the way, is a Gucci flip. That's an old Gucci song. So talking about flipping bars, that's an old Gucci song. But yeah, that sticks in my head like a sore thumb. And also like the voice he was doing, it was just so much about that song. I was like, this is like, I like this. And it's a couple other songs that like Sky, Wake Up, it's the first of the month. I roll my weed and count up. Like just a lot of things that stick in my head. But I don't like the album like that. But there's songs that I do like. There's more songs on the album that I like than any other Playboi Carti album.
Wow. Okay, hey man, if somebody likes it, somebody likes it. I thought the album was whack as hell.
Like I said, me saying that I don't like the album like that, but if I had to pick an album that I liked of Carti the most, it would be a Whole Lot of Red.
Nuts to me, because I feel like Playboi Carti hit his stride with that Playboi Carti, man. Like that mixtape to me was like, that's it, you know. And it's interesting you say in terms of quotables, right? And this is where I always try to like make it very clear. To me, I don't think there's anyone in the rap game that has quotables. I grew up on Nas and Jay and DMX and Jada and all that stuff, right? And Jerry the Damager and stuff. People that were really saying some shit. So the idea, not to say that new dudes can't have quotables, but I gotta be honest with you, there isn't anybody in the new generation where I'm impressed by their pen, and that there hasn't been, and it's been, we're in 2022, so I think it's been at least like 14, 15 years since I've heard somebody like impress me pen wise. I'm gonna be honest with you. I hear beats impress me. I hear vocal things, you know, styles of rhyming that impress me. But I've not heard somebody pen wise, or at least put it all together, where I'm like, oh my God, I really feel that. Drake's not talking about nothing, and I like Drake a lot. Drake is like, of the new generation rappers, I think Drake is definitely one of the strongest, top 5 easily. I don't think Drake talks about anything worth really listening to. You know, in the grand scheme of things, his stuff is very vague and generic. It's like, you know, doesn't make it bad, but it's just kind of vague and generic. I mean, like, I think I need some Robitussin. It's cool. It's fun. Like, you know, I love that song, but it's not freedom in jail, clips inserted, a baby's being born the same time a man is murdered, the beginning and end. Like, I'm sorry. I just grew up in a different era. Like,
so I would not put Drake in that crazy, amazing pen game, but there are some people I would say that's like newer in the sense that, like, I don't know if you ever heard this rapper. You ever heard of Ka?
Yeah, I've heard of Ka. I've seen Ka, but Ka, his pen is cool. His pen is better than average. I would give him that, for sure. Of the newer people, Ka's pen is better than average. But the problem with Ka is that Ka's flow is below average, and his beat selection is below average. So it doesn't actually make his bars shine, because it's not really what you say, it's how you say it. That's always been a thing in hip-hop, and I think people forget that. You know what I'm saying? Like, the reason why people love Rakim, right? First and foremost is, what do you think?
Well, people love Rakim?
Rakim, yeah. Why does Rakim? I
think Rakim had a lot of, he's like one of the rappers that had a lot of presence to me. Like, he had a lot of mic presence. Him and Kane, really. Kane had a lot of charisma.
That's the point.
You know what I'm saying?
There's something about Rakim changed the way that people actually rap vocally, right? That's why Rakim is respected. And then on top of that, he said the craziest shit. On top of that. So then it's like you got a dude who's changing the way that people actually rap vocally. And on top of that, it's changing the way people think, you know, with the way they rap. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that when you hear Rakim rap, what you're hearing is vocal mastery, really. And then on top of that, obviously, lyrical mastery. And it's more about how you say something than what you say. And my problem with Ka is that I like what Ka says, right? I mean, on paper, I can read what Ka says, and it's like, oh, okay, this is pretty cool. This is all right. But I don't like how Ka is saying it. And because I don't like how he's saying it, it doesn't stick to me at all, because I'm like, it's just not delivered well enough.
Can I spin that on a different angle for you, maybe? So, Rakim, great vocal presence. Like I said, he just can't. I ain't no joke. Like, you know, I guess the nigga ain't no joke. You know, you know what I'm saying? But I think that Ka angle is a little bit different. So me and my friends talk about this all the time. We like, bro, Ka, he raps like he grew up in Gotham City. Like, he seems like he grew up in the worst neighborhood of all time, and he sounds like, huh?
From Brownsville. Brownsville's pretty shitty, so
very bad. And the way he raps, the way his beat sounds, it just sounds like a black and white. Like, I feel like when I think of Russia, I don't think Russia has, you know, you look at like a black and white film, I think Russia is still in black and white. Like, Russia just seems like a very depressing place. It doesn't look happy at all. That's how I imagine Ka's environment in music, and the way he raps, it sets that. So if he was a little bit more upbeat and energetic, it probably wouldn't do it for me. He has a song on his new album, I forget the name of it, but he's get a little bit more energy, and it fits because he's talking about like, he's like, they stole our name, our sound, our braids. And he's just saying everything they stole, and the nigga's like, he's finna like just choke a white person out in the middle of the song, and I'm like, yeah, I'm finna throw in a Black Panther beret listening to it, like the way he was just talking. And I feel like his voice sets the mood for the situations that he raps about. It's very eerie and just grim, in my opinion. Like that nigga rap like he read in the New Testament. Like his life seemed like it was supposed to happen in the Bible, and I don't feel like Bible times are like I don't know if it's just like a black and white eerie depiction to me.
Sure, but then that's radio play shit, and I don't want to hear that. I want to hear hip hop music, bro. Like, I mean,
I feel you. I get you. But I can appreciate that. And I can appreciate somebody with a lot of charisma on the song. Like, it just depends what type of mood I'm in, because I could listen to Ka, and then tomorrow I might want to listen to Chief Keef. Like, it just really depends. Like, I be having different types of moods that I'm into when I listen to certain type of rap, you know?
I hear you. And I think that this is one of the things that, as the game has progressed and has become obviously evolved and more complex in certain ways, I think people... What I think has been lost a lot is that people forget that hip hop started out as party. It's always been party music. It literally started out as a party music, and that's the core of it. And if your music doesn't make people do this, do the WAP, whatever, if it doesn't make me do this, it's probably not very good. And that's just been my opinion. And the reality is that if you look back from the 70s to the 80s to the 90s to 2000s, it all made us do this in different ways.
Does Illmatic make you do that?
1,000%.
Illmatic don't make me do that.
1,000%.
I think Illmatic is a classic like everybody else, but Illmatic don't make me want to get the grooving. It made me want to do this. But that's what I'm saying. Okay, but even that. That's a movement. It makes you move somehow. But I gotta be honest with you, I think that Illmatic is first of all, Illmatic is incredible, but the reality of the matter is that Illmatic, the beats on there are very party oriented for that time. Right? It's just that Illmatic it's party oriented, but not in the played out kind of way from '93. And that's why when you listen to the beats from Illmatic, they sound dope, whereas there's beats from that time period that sound like '93, where you're like, oh, that sounds exactly like '93. They got that 93 sound, whereas what the stuff was on Illmatic was a little bit more experimental. But absolutely, that should go. I mean, I remember going to a party here because TIFF comes down here, Toronto International Film Festival, and I remember there was like a couple of actors in the room too and things like that, and the DJ basically played all of Illmatic at the party, like damn near track for track, and people were loving it because it's like, I mean, I don't know how you hear a song like it ain't hard to tell that shit bump. Like, I'm sorry, like it ain't hard to tell it's got that da, like you still feel that shit. The world is yours, whose world is I mean, you moving. Now, I'm not saying it's not again. It's about movement. It's all. Like, if I'm listening to something and I'm like, where's the movement? Right? And that's real talk. A lot of times when I shit on Griselda and these guys, I'm not seeing that movement. It's like super slow and depressing, and it's like, put your head down music. I'm not into that, man. What about into 36? 36 Chambers.
36 Chambers is hard, man.
No, I love 36 Chambers. But I ain't saying I ain't grooving it.
Dude, Protect Your Neck goes, man. Come on,
bro.
Protect Your Neck, kid. That shit go. Are you kidding me? METHO, that shit go. Those tracks go. I mean, I think also
Method Man is fire. That in me, yeah.
Oh man.
No, I'm not. Like I said, I don't want anybody to misconstrue and think I'm saying the album isn't good. I'm just saying when I think of like, because that's grimy, very grimy. That's
super
grimy Styles P music, grimy. But I'm not listening to Styles P to dance. I'm listening to Styles P because I want to stab a nigga in his neck.
Well, see, this is the thing, and I think again, you're also, with all due respect, you're kind of listening to these songs out of context, out of like they were made years, like they were made years before, right? You got. So I remember when those songs came out, and I remember a lot of times, you know, I get high. I remember that being played in the club. You know what I'm saying? Like, and
can I say one thing? I don't mean to cut you, but I feel like I have to preface this. You know what? I feel like you could be right. It's out of context. I heard it later. It's a lot of music that I don't understand because I feel like I wasn't there for it. But you know what else I think is a big thing? I'm from the South, and the South made rap music very differently from New York did it. So a Styles P song would never be played in a Southern club. You know what I'm saying? And it's all respect. I love Styles P, but that's just how it is. So
I know what it is.
So when I'm thinking of something to groove to, at that time they playing Juvenile in the club. They playing 400 Degrees in the club. They playing Hot Boys in the club. They playing Luke in Florida. They playing Luke in the club. So you know what I'm saying? Doodoo Brown, like they playing that type music in the club. You know what I'm saying? So when I'm thinking of grooving, that's kind of what I'm thinking about for that time period. Versus, you know what I'm saying? It's much more bouncier, master, make them say, oh, like it's a little bit more different than the way I guess New York was grooving, because they was really playing shake your booty music back then in the Miami clubs with Uncle Luke and Pony Express, and this is a whole bunch of just Miami legends. And then you get the early Slip and Slide, Trick Daddy, Trina, like that's that type of grooving music I'm thinking of versus like Illmatic. You know what I'm saying? It's different. You know what I'm saying?
No, I agree 100%, and I think that and that's a fair point. I'm glad you brought that up, because again, I think it's very important for people who do listen to rap to be able to go to different states and listen to the music in those states and be around those people, because then you start to understand it a little more. You know what I mean? Like, I've partied in Houston. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I remember I remember being in Houston and just being like, wow, they are not playing any New York records in here. Literally the only New York shit I'm hearing is Jay, right? And Jay, you know, married Beyonce. Beyonce's from Texas, or she's from Houston, right?
Yeah.
And they're not playing, you know, the Evils and none of that shit. They're playing Big Pimpin', which is sort of has that like Southern bounce thing to it. So, you know, it's a very different environment. And I get that, right? Like, and I've, you know, partied obviously in LA, and like, you know, it's actually, I would argue that LA and the South actually kind of have similar vibes.
Oh, I've said that. Hey, I've said this a million times on my channel. So that's I've been arguing that for a minute.
Yeah, like I'm hanging out in Inglewood, and I'm like, I remember hanging out in Inglewood and like at a spot, and I was like, this reminds me so much of Houston.
Yeah,
and like just like the music they're playing, and like even the crowd, the setup of the place. It's like, this is just like Houston to me. You know what I mean? But again, this is where I also think that New York is very different. I've partied in like Jersey. Like, New York is very different, and I think to a certain degree, obviously, this is why people in New York have this sort of like, you know, you could argue to get a little arrogant with it, but I respect it and I understand it, because like especially having lived in New York, it's very different. Like, go to New York and you party in New York, like you dance. People dance for real in fucking New York. Like, a lot of that, you know, popping, and people be doing that shit. Like, I mean, that's how they. I mean, and that's hip hop. So like, the speed and the energy and the rhythm is different, and so that's why, to a certain degree, I can understand somebody in Florida who's like, yo, like, you know, this style P song, Soul Clap, will never go anywhere. Like I would never hear this at the club, but they don't understand that, like, if they were in New York at that time and they were at a club, they might play Soul Clap and people might dance to that shit, because that shit is heat. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean? But because I remember, like, you know, like hearing Soul Clap is like a perfect basketball game. I remember hearing that at, you know, during the N1 mixtapes when it came out, and it was just like, yeah, that's the kind of shit, like, you know, people playing ball, there's music in the background, and you're in the audience, and, you know, you hear Soul Clap, is just, you know, some grimy shit to have fun to, right? But that's what I'm trying to say, is that, like, at the end of the day, I think the great hip-hop music always gets us moving in some way. And I think the problem with some rappers is that they forget this. They either forget it or they kind of feel like it's tough. I think honestly, I think some of them are like a little bit afraid a little bit sometimes of the beat. But it's like, yo, the drum, man. We're black. Like I'm African. It's the drum, like,
yeah.
And like and we have a million ways that we play that drum, and a million ways that we dance to it, whatever. But at the end of the day, if it don't have that like that heartbeat, it's a little weak. You know what I'm saying? And again, it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be across all the kind of music we make, because black folk have invented a lot of music, a lot of different styles of music. But I'm talking specifically with hip hop, right? Hip hop, it's like, it's got to do this for you on something, man. Like, and if it doesn't, it's just like, I don't feel this. And all the tracks I listen to, every one of them, like whether it be from Rocky to old Nas to Slick Rick to Houdini, they all got that like thing. You know what I'm saying? They make me get up and feel like dancing somehow. And I don't get that feeling with some of these like newer guys who are supposedly lyricists and shit. I'm just like, this beat is not telling me to do anything.
You know, it's interesting. So you know what I bet really confused you when you moved to Texas and you said they chopped and screwed it, and you can't dance to that at all. And they chopping and screwing music, and it's super duper slow, and they don't got no really type of. You feel me?
Yeah, for real. And what's interesting is that it's funny you say that, because a really good friend of mine, born and raised in Brooklyn, she can't stand that chopped and screw shit. She's just like, she could never get into it, right? She was just like, I don't get it. It sounds like drug music, and it kind of is. Actually,
yeah, it is lean music. Yeah,
it's lean music, right? Now, for me personally, I'm cool with it. I mean, I like some chopped and screw stuff for sure, because I remember hearing "Sitting Sideways" for the first time when that came out, and I was just like, yo, this is like, again, I have experiences that sometimes I think, younger listeners, they don't realize that I've been into rap for a while, man. And I was a fan of rap before some of these really big, powerful songs came out. I remember when "Sitting Sideways" came out, and I was like, this beat is ill. Like, just that whole
It's one of the best hip hop. That's one of my favorite hip hop songs ever. I was there for that too. I was really young, but I remember watching that because it used to come on TV all the time. That was good. Fire.
And what's wild to me is what's funny. So there's a guy I know, right? And he used to tell me, and he was on forums, and he was an aspiring rapper at the time. And the dude that made that beat gave that beat to them, and they were like, I don't know, and they didn't do anything with it.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. And Paul was like, I'm gonna take that.
Yeah, like Texas culture is so interesting to me because Florida does something you're probably not hip to it, but we do the exact opposite. We speed up our music, so everything is fast. So let's say one of my favorite Playboi Carti songs in this context is Yamin. Yamin fast. So if you type in Yamin fast, they make it fast and they speed it up super duper fast. And I love fast music. So yeah, one of the biggest things out here called Fast Music 954 is Broward County, and they basically like the same way they'll chop school all their music, they speed it up and they add their little ones and twos to it or whatnot. And yeah,
No, that's interesting, because you know what came to mind? A song that I actually quite like. I mean, I don't really listen to it like often at all. But you know that song "Scarred" by Luke?
Yeah.
Yeah. Then it's like, it's fast.
Yeah.
Like,
I got a perfect example. You know what it's kind of like? Peanut butter jelly time. It's peanut butter jelly time. Peanut butter jelly time. Where they at? Huh?
I don't know that song.
Oh, it's like a freaking. Maybe because I'm Florida so big, but Family Guy had used it one time, and like Brian dressed up in like a banana suit, and he was like, "It's peanut butter jelly time." But it's like, it's this one guy down here. He has like some of the most classic like dance fast songs. It's like that. Another one that you might have seen on a commercial. It's ice cream and cake. Ice cream and cake. It's ice cream and cake. And it's like really really fast music. But that's how they like it in Florida. They like it sped up. They like it fast because they like to dance. Because Florida, dancing city too. Jacksonville, not really a big dancing city, but Miami and all that, they love dancing and doing these. You know what I'm saying? Kodak has a dance. Kodak Bop, like they love to dance down here. So I definitely understand that. And I see with the drill music. That's a big thing with drill music in New York is dancing. They do all of this dancing, the pop smoke little leg dance they be doing. So dancing is a very important part of just black culture in general, like moving and grooving. You know what I'm saying?
And look, and for sure, and we dance all kinds of ways and in all kinds of contexts and different, R&B as like we have dances for all kinds of shit. And so that's why. But with all that said, I think hip hop. There's something very unique to hip hop because hip hop is, I would argue, more. Hip hop is more gutter. It's like the most gutter art form in a way that Black folk have created. But hip hop is gutter, but it's also really strange, and that's something that it was always like that because it's the bastard son of disco, right, and funk. So it was taking stuff that people were doing in funk and disco, but making it stranger. And I think that's a thing that people sometimes I think forget with hip hop, that hip hop is by its very nature, so it's supposed to sound strange, but strange in a addictive, hypnotic way. Not strange and like, oh, that's garbage. Like, what the fuck? Like, you know what I'm saying? But like, it's that otherworldly ish. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like you take a disco record and you warp it. That warping thing is what makes hip hop its thing, and that's why, to a certain degree, yeah, of course, like my parents, growing up, and my dad, growing up seeing James Brown and all that stuff, they all danced. Of course, Black folk have always danced, but hip hop is like, it's this like weirdo shit. It's like hip hop. Like that's what makes hip hop hip hop. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's not just that we dance, but it's like a stranger, like karate, influenced, like just movement thing, right? Yeah. And like if you don't get it, and if you're not in that space, it won't make sense. It makes sense. But like once you're in that space, you're like, oh yeah, this is it. This is cool because this is different. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like everything else, but it's also its own thing.
Hey man, I realize we've been talking for a super duper long time.
Wow.
And I want to have you back on, but in a very special way. We'll talk about it off camera. Okay. Just expect to see him back on in a very much more, even more interesting way. Because I got more stuff to talk about, man. Kendrick's my favorite rapper of all time. Up there with Ghostface.
All time?
Ghostface, Kendrick, neck and neck.
No, man.
Alchemist, my favorite producer of all time. I've seen you say some crazy stuff about Alchemist that I was like, come on. But Kendrick is my guy, bro. Kendrick, I first heard Kendrick and I was like, this nigga sucks. First time I ever heard him. Okay. Then I heard Section 80 and I was like, oh, this is super duper good. Good Kid, Mad City came out and I was like, oh, this is my guy. To Pimp a Butterfly legitimately like just blew my mind the first time I heard it. And I like, cause like I like music. So I was in a symphonic band. I grew up playing the trombone. So I love when rappers utilize live instrumentation. And he did a lot of that on his last album. He did a lot of that on To Pimp a Butterfly with bass. He had strings on there. He had just a lot of instrumentation. And I love when rappers do that. And outside of his music side,
I hate when rappers do that shit.
You do?
1000%.
What? How we talking about grooving? You that's the essence of grooving.
I tell you, we groove, but there's different. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, the problem is that hip hop is, because hip hop is swallowed. Hip hop is, in a lot of ways, has swallowed all the other black genres. Yeah. When I don't think it should have been that way. I think hip hop is, I mean, it's amazing. Hip hop should just be its own thing. It's hip hop. There's R&B. There's, Zydeco or whatever. There's its own thing. Like, there's other things, right? Because we groove in different ways. And I think what's happened is that because it's almost like you see any new black artist come out now and they're just like, they get the hip hop label. They got the hip hop stamp. And I'm like, they're not making hip hop music. That doesn't mean that their music is whack. It just means that it's not a hip hop thing. Okay. Like, that artist could be inspired by who knows what, and be making legitimately amazing pop music or amazing rock, whatever. But just because they're black, they get the hip hop stamp. And what I'm trying to say is that we've been here before, and I'll say why we've been here before. Live instrumentation, in my honest opinion, sucks 99% of the time. And the reason why it sucks, not that live instrumentation sucks as a listening experience overall. I'm saying that in hip-hop it sucks because it sucks the energy out of the song. We've been here before. People have literally experimented with this shit going back to the late 70s. Okay, because this is some hip hop history. When hip hop first started with Kool Herc and them, right? And they're playing in parks and things like that, right? You have to understand. So they're playing vinyl. They're playing vinyl and connecting it to speakers and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And then they're rapping on top of it. And people who are there are like, oh, this is some cool shit. It's like, it sounds raw, it's booming. And then people start recording those sessions, those live sessions, right? But they're recording them with like audio equipment and all this kind of stuff. And then the tapes are going around and people are like, oh my God, this sounds really cool. There's something about just the way this music sounds, and it's hard and it's booming and all this kind of shit. And so then it became a thing of like, okay, well, how do we replicate this in studio? And you have to understand, like, samplers didn't really exist at that time. So the first thing that people started doing was to replay that music, right? So that's what I'm trying to say, that like people like Pumpkin is like one of the, I don't know if you've ever heard of Pumpkin, but Pumpkin is like one of the first major hip hop producers back in like the 70s, in like 79, 80. And he was a music genius. And he was like, okay, all right. And he was musically trained. He was like, okay, this like, let's say Grandmaster Flash or whatever is playing over a James Brown, like they're playing a James Brown song, which is already recorded. So he's like, okay, well, why don't we just replay James Brown with live instrumentation, okay, in the studio so that we can do it ours. But the problem with that is it takes the punch out of the song, and the punch is extremely important in hip hop. It takes the punch out of it because there's something about the way that recorded music sounds versus live. And there's something about that taking music, that's already been like processed. That makes sense. Onto analog. It has a certain punch to it that live instrumentation doesn't quite have, and that's why when those first samplers came out, like with like Run DMC and Larry Smith and them started using it, and it was like the first time, and then they went, you've ever heard that song with Run DMC? Jesus, I'm trying to remember the name. Is this Suck MCs? It's like super, just like keyboard crazy shit. Yeah. And that live instrumentation shit just got tossed out the freaking window because like people, it almost reminded them of that rawness and that punch that they used to hear when they were at those park jams. And that's the point. It's that like live instrumentation, especially live drums, oh my God, they like drive me insane. I'm like, this shit has no punch.
You hate the Roots.
Oh, I'm not a fan at all. Never been. I don't listen to them at all. Like, their shit is too weak for me. I've tried
See, a million. You don't like the what's the name of the song with Erykah Badu?
It's cool. No, it's cool. It's all right, but I mean, I'm not playing that. Like,
see, but that's you not liking R&B, because I feel like I like live instrumentation because I love soul music and R&B, and a lot of that great music had Bobby Womack and Al Green, Marvin Gaye, and them. They was bringing in orchestra sometimes to get the sound right or whatnot. So I like that. Like, I like that live music. I like that live music from soul music because it gives the soul. I always say R&B is not that good today because it's missing two things. One, a lot of them can't sing, so it's like, where's the feeling gonna come from? And the live instrumentation, because live instruments evoke emotion, and if you could sing, that's going to evoke emotion. So if you can't sing and you're not giving me live instrumentations, where is the actual soul? Where is the feeling? Like, what am I supposed to be evoked? Like, what am I supposed to be feeling right now? Because it's computerized, and I feel like the live instrumentation in rap can bring out that soul and that raw feeling and emotion sometimes. And hey, man, that's why I love. You ever heard Illmatic? Not Illmatic, but Illmatic by Elzai.
Yeah, for sure. I remember when it came out.
That's all. He flipped that with all live instruments too. And
great.
Huh?
It wasn't that great.
Get out of here, man. Get out of here, man. Come on. Illmatic is fire.
Yo, listen. I hear you. And again, this is where I say that in different contexts, certain things are cool. Right? In the soul, in the R&B world, that stuff is cool. But in hip-hop, it sucks. And this is what I'm trying to say. That, like, hip-hop is its own thing. Hip-hop is computerized. Hip-hop is technology music. It always has been. You know what I'm saying? It started out with turntables. I mean, it's not like hip hop didn't start from instruments. It started from turntables.
Yeah.
Right. And it moved into more and more computerized like type shit because it's computer music. I mean, that's the appeal of it. If it wasn't, like, and I think this is kind of the point where sometimes when I'm listening to people talk about, oh, you know, the way that they added this live drums, it's like it's expanding hip hop, and I'm like, what do you mean it's expanding hip hop? We've been here before. Yeah. I have the context to understand this shit. We've been here before. People have tried this shit in the late 90s, sorry, in the late 70s, in the early 80s, and it didn't fucking work. You know what I'm saying? For them, because they were like, it's not really what the culture of hip hop. I'm not saying that it doesn't mean that it doesn't work in other genres, right? Larry Smith, who's a phenomenal producer that nobody talks about, who produced both Houdini and Run DMC, genius, was a classically trained musician, brilliant guy who opted to use samplers and keyboards, even though he was trained as a musician and could play. I mean, he actually, all that stuff that they made with Houdini and stuff like that, he actually composed all that stuff, so he didn't even sample. There was no real samplers like that at the time. But my point is that even he realized, he was like, look, yeah, I could play the drums. I'm classically trained. I'm a great musician. But that's not really what hip-hop is about. Hip-hop is more computerized, and it's harder. It has more of a punch to it. And so rather than me playing the drums live, why don't I try to program the drums into this machine and use my musical knowledge? And again, and that's real genius. And that's because, you know, that's like letting your ego as a musician go and saying, okay, I know this, but just because I know this and I'm good at this doesn't necessarily mean that that works for this culture and this genre. Here's a guy who grew up in Queens. He probably has been in park jams. He gets it. He's seen there going like, yeah, this is what makes this shit tick. It's the digital, computerized turntable, hard feel of it. And let me try to make that better, as opposed to just being like, no, that's not real music. I'm just going to add live instrumentation. Live instrumentation is different, man. Again, I'm not knocking it, but it's a different thing. If I want to hear that, I don't necessarily want to hear it in hip-hop. And that's just how I am. That's just my opinion. I might want to hear that, like, if I want to listen to, like, some Al Green, I'm, like, cooking or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And throw on Let's Stay Together or some shit. Okay, you know what I'm saying? Like, but if I want to hear some, like, if I want to hear about Nas and Queensbridge, I want to hear them live drums. I want to hear, like, Primo and, you know what I'm saying?
I feel you. I mean, hey, Houdini has classics. Houdini got some you know what I'm saying? The freaks come out at night. The freaks come out. You know what I'm saying?
You know.
It's very goofy.
And you see, like, you know, Jermaine Dupri hitting up in the video, like, popping, you know.
I get you. But yeah, like I said, we have to come back and talk about this stuff because there's so much more, and we keep going, it'll be like a freaking 5-hour video, so we're going to cut it short here. If there's anything you have to say for the people watching, any last words, please let it be known.
Yeah, you know what? First of all, I appreciate you reaching out, and I guess my last words would be obviously keep watching both of our channels. We've got some quality stuff, man. Like your interviews, like I'm telling you got some real quality stuff. And I can't remember if we talked about Lyle LaDuff already, but like I said, love Lyle LaDuff and some of the producers you have, new and old, who are on it. Molly Raw, I have to watch that one. I'm actually really looking forward to that as well, because I do follow the new shit.
Hey, I just want to say, those interviews that you're naming, I should have never got, bro. I was like in high school at the time. I was literally recording from my phone and FaceTiming them from my mother's phone. It was terrible, like audio, terrible footage.
Sure, but at the end of the day, it doesn't. And I think that's sometimes that people don't like. It's about, again, it depends on the kind of person you are. But to me, it's about the content, right? Like it doesn't necessarily. As long as I can hear what the person is saying, it doesn't really matter how it looks. It's like, what are they saying? Are they comfortable? And you have good interview skills. You know what I'm saying? I noticed even back then, like, you know, you with your interview, like, you kept things on track. Like, you asked good questions, right? And that's really what matters, right? So, I guess my last words is obviously look out for, you know, my channel. Actually, I have, because people have always asked me this. Like, I never really got onto, like, this YouTube shit. I wasn't trying to make money or anything like that off YouTube, personally. I got to be honest with you. And that's something sometimes people are like, oh, you know, you're just trying to get your name, your clout up. Like, not really. Like, you know, I was just a guy. I just got tired of seeing whack, like you were saying, people who didn't know what the hell they were talking about, and I just wanted to state my opinion. So it was never about the dollar for me, you know, like that. I am going to like run a Kickstarter campaign in like maybe a couple of months or something. I have a really cool film, like it's really an animation, but like a really dope animation project that I would love people to be a part of. That I will need some support for, but like I'm on some of that other shit with this, man. Like people think like my rap stuff is like that's cool, but really like when you start to really see like my film stuff, then I think people are gonna be blown away.
Hey, we're gonna talk about that too next time. I'm a film minor. That's my minor in college right now.
Okay.
So yeah,
Man.
I'm very into
like,
film.
you know, my Vimeo. If you go to my channel and you go to my Vimeo from there, like I've done like 2 short films, like you know, funded them myself, like action stuff. I've always done like I love The Matrix. I love like action shit. So and I always want to do new, like something that's like not really been done. I see a lot of people do the same shit over and over again. You know what I'm saying? And it's kind of frustrates me, you know, like even now as like we're starting to kind of slightly see some diverse content, I think people can get a little bit deeper with it. You know what I mean? Like, you know, it can't just be like, oh, you know, it's dragons, but they're black people. Like,
That's funny. Well, shoot, man, you guys go tap in. Look out for the Kickstarter. Your YouTube channel will be in the description. If you're watching right now, I appreciate you guys. Until next time, I say what I mean what I say. Haters gonna hate, players gonna play it, and y'all holler at your boy.